Hello. So hello everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. So we're here today to talk about the Unleash event that went off in Paris last week. And I would like to first of all start by introducing you to our guests, Rhonda Taylor and Larry McAllister. So if Rhonda, hand you over to you first, that would be great.
Thanks, Hannah. I am with Feel 50. We're a talent management platform that has gone to the next level in regards to skills ontology, skills taxonomy, and all the new things that are happening in the analytics world of talent management. I take care of partnerships. I take care of analysts, and I also seem to be the chief person at a lot of the conferences, Hannah.
You certainly are, Rhonda, and what a great job you do.
So I'm Larry McAllister. I'm the founder of the Corporate Humanist Consultancy, helping companies tie their HR strategy and their technology strategy together. Recently become an analyst to help others understand what's going on out there in the world. What are the needs of the employees, what technology there is, and try to decipher the best answer for you. And I joined Rhonda and Hannah in Paris last week, and that's never a bad venue to be in Paris. So it was lovely.
Thank you, Larry. So obviously, and I'm Hannah Nash from 1080, and we're going to talk today a little bit about what we found from Unleash and what our takeaways were. So let's jump right in. And obviously, anyone listening, feel free to ask any questions because we love the questions. But let's start with our first. So what was your highlights for Unleash 2022? Larry, do you want to jump right in?
I mean, I think the overall highlight was just seeing humans interacting live together. That was definitely a highlight. But I think seeing how many different vendors and companies have different approaches to solving the employee experience and touches every aspect of it. So I'm pleased and happy to see the approach that some of these companies are taking. And everyone you talk to has a different view of it. So it's incumbent upon us to sort of figure out what's right for us. But the options are so much greater and broader than they've ever been. So we are living in the golden age of HR technology, and it was evident at Unleash.
I completely agree. And I have to say, one of the things that really struck me while I was there is the piece around this collaboration and transparency that you're seeing. So this desire not just for tech that tells us things, but actually that we can share with our colleagues and our teams. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'll pop up there, or go ahead, Larry.
No, go ahead. You look
okay.
ready.
I'll pop up there. I thought that was very interesting, the transparency side, and Europe is so much further ahead of North America in regards to transparency, and they actually have it. You know, they have the privacy side. You know, in that protecting their individualism, but there is also the transparency of understanding their careers and their motives and their goals and things like that. And I just like it was totally in sync with our corporate mandate, and it was just like such a breath of fresh air for me to see that.
Yeah, you know what, I had a conversation about a year into the pandemic. What are movies going to look like coming out of the pandemic? But I think, what is technology going to look like? And I think transparency is so needed, and collaboration is so needed now. I think it's always needed, but I think an offshoot of coming out of the pandemic is companies focusing on those two topics. So spot on, Hannah, for sure.
Definitely. Thanks, Larry. And Rhonda, what was your highlight?
I think that my highlight was seeing Europe coming out of COVID. You know, we heard in North America how hard Europe was hit by COVID, and we jumped on the bandwagon. We got involved with Unleash, not quite knowing what would transpire, and it was great to see, like as Larry said, the one-on-one, you know, the discussions occurring. I think they had like 4,000 people go through their turnstiles. So that was great, whether the people going onto the exhibit floor or going into the exhibit, the exhibit hall, or going into the sessions. But that was my highlight. I was just ecstatic to see the success in the number of people buying into the one-on-one relationship in shows again.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Rhonda. And I think it was a real nice thing to see, but also it was really empowering to be able to have those conversations with other professionals and all be in the same room and almost share those experiences, which I think was really eye-opening for people. So before we go on, I've actually got a question for you, Rhonda, from Jack, who's asking, why do you think Europe is ahead of North America in regards to transparency? It's a very good question.
I think because of the laws in regards to their employment acts. I had a really good discussion with a gentleman by the name of Jen Bender out of Germany, and he was saying how the employee has such great rights in understanding where they are within their corporation and what their status is. And we in North America, I don't think we're always that totally upfront with our employees.
So I wonder if, like, when you're saying that, I don't know if, don't hold me to this answer to be proof. It's just an idea. But is the other side of the coin of GDPR, which is complete data protection, is the other side of that coin more transparency then? Right, it's born out of that potentially, right? And the society is hungry for that a little bit faster than North America, I think. So that's my gut, I think.
Yeah, and I think that is the case, and it's really interesting, isn't it, that I know, I think it's Gary Bowles talked about bringing your whole self to work. Well, actually, if we're going to have this relationship where we bring our whole self to work, you do need that level of transparency, because if I'm going to give my whole self to you and I want that back in return, then I do need to share that information, because people don't know otherwise.
Yeah. Can you be vulnerable without transparency? Can you be honest about bringing your whole self to work if there's not transparency? So I think that's the next wave. I totally believe that.
Very true. So thank you. So my next question is, what were the emerging themes at the conference? And I think this is obviously very subjective. And it was certainly, for me, I experienced lots of different things being said. But Rhonda, do you want to jump in there?
Well, I'm probably going to go to speak about it in regards to the vendors. And I was just really impressed on how some vendors step up and work in, as we were talking about earlier, in collaboration. That all of a sudden smaller platforms are merging with other platforms that are merging with other platforms, and you almost have a cradle to grave experience because of this collaboration that's occurring, and the level of openness between vendors, which again, there's the transparency, and it's almost like, again, what a true partnership. It's a marriage, and so there has to be that level of openness, and I saw that in the European marketplace. More than where in HR tech, where there's the level of, and Larry, you'll probably support me, where there's the level of hoarding. This is what I do, and I might be able to work with you, but I'm not sure.
So I think we're at this pendulum moment. So 5 years ago, all these small artificial intelligence companies grew up in the HR space and got away from the big Workdays and SAP. So this whole ecosystem of small companies are attacking the cradle to grave, the entire employee experience. And I think the pendulum is now saying, well, how do we start partnering better? How do we merge better? How do we have multiple offerings, multiple company offerings to a customer? I think with the pendulum swinging back to a little bit more consolidation, whether that's acquisitions of companies or not, I don't know, but partnership, I saw so much of that as well. So I agree with you on that one.
I completely agree with both of you. And actually, it was really interesting because I think it was one of my surprises to see those partnerships. So this piece that says there's lots of different solutions, and actually people might need more than one. And if we work well together, it gives that flawless experience of technology that ultimately helps boost us and individuals using it. And I think that was something I heard a lot, but actually I saw it happening as well.
Yeah.
I think as a customer, I'm sorry, one quick thing, Rhonda. You have to think of an HR tech stack. You do. They're not individual solutions.
Yes.
It's an HR tech
Yes.
stack. Sorry, Rhonda, I cut you off.
No, you're right. And I was just saying it's totally a seamless integration. Totally seamless between one company and another. And I was really impressed with that.
I mean, I'm obviously biased, but Fuel 50 are very good at those partnerships, and they do it very well. And it's all about putting the customer first, and that experience is critical. And I think that was really loud and clear.
Yeah, and to add to that, Hannah, I had a lot of people coming to me, and it's partnerships have almost become so sophisticated that there's platforms like I witnessed one called Reveal, I think, during the show, and it's like, oh, I can partner with three or four companies in your space. I'm like, yeah, you're not partnering with me if you're partnering with my competitors. We have our standards, and it was very interesting to see the different paths that people are going down.
Yeah, agreed.
So for me, or let me just give my emerging themes real quick. So I hosted a room, the Zen Work Room or Work Zen Room, that had 5 different speakers come in. And the 2 themes that had the most people that showed up for that was one called, it was a Forrester analyst who talked about Burnout, a Love Story, and the idea of mental fitness, mental health, well-being. I think that is the next wave of where we are in the pandemic affected society is mental fitness. Yeah. And a lot of people showed up for that, and we're taking pictures of his slides. And then the biggest one was Cartier, the French company that does watches and all that. They talked about integrating all of your data to be able to tell a coherent, simple story. And that was a standing room only session. So the 2 emerging themes are mental fitness and integrated data and analytics to tell a story. That I saw that loud and clear.
That's really interesting. Do you feel that data analysis, being able to tell a story, will really add value to HR and the tech? And
absolutely. I mean, if we just, Rhonda just talked about integrating different parts of your HR stack. What does that mean for the data behind it? How do you tie all of that great data that you would not get on a pulse survey, right? You get like Better Up coaching data. You get Fuel 50. What are my aspirations and where do I want to go data? How do those 2 tie together? And what story is that telling? So if you can tie that in a more simple, cohesive story, it doubles the ROI for what you bought with these tech stacks.
Absolutely. And I think that really does give you the business case for combining the tech and the people element. Okay, really interesting. And I have to say, like, one of the things I heard, which I was quite surprised about, was going back to your mental fitness, was about this leading with love. And I know there was a really great session on that. And I think it's really important that we don't just think about what you bring to work in terms of your skills, but your mental health and your well-being, and how we really build on that. And actually, as managers in an organization, how do we do that well, and how do we show that to our teams?
Yeah. And Hannah, to add to that, we did an analyst session, and we spoke about, how do you get the most out of your employees? And I think it was Jess Van Bach from LeapGen. She said, it's really important for us at the leadership level to lead with head, hands, and heart.
Yes.
And that's like what you just said, leading with love. And
absolutely.
like I like wrote that down. Like, oh my God, like that's like That's almost like a mantra for me now.
I love it. Okay, so the next thing was any surprise insights. So anything you thought, oh, I didn't see that coming, left field?
For me, it was two sides of a similar thing. One is when you talk to 5 vendors, they're all using the same language. So it's a little bit difficult to understand when you say employee experience, what does that really mean, vendor A compared to vendor B? So being able to have a clear statement of what your offering is a real challenge for some of these vendors, because we are all hearing it. If you're a customer, these words are undefined, right? They're very amorphous. So to get clear definitions from the vendors, I think is the next step. But then I ran into some companies who are super clear and are like, we only work with companies that have 1,500 employees or less, and this is exactly our offering, and this is what we're going to do. So seeing the balance of those two and having very clear, this is my team, this is my market, this is what we do, was a super surprise for me. It was great to hear some of these smaller companies helping smaller companies, and that was an eye opener for me.
Agreed. Yeah, no, definitely, Larry. And actually that's a really interesting take, isn't it? Because actually you're being very niche and saying, I know I can solve whatever your problem might be, but I'll only do it in this particular area for this particular client.
And that makes that in conversation much easier to get through.
That's true.
Right? Because a lot of people want to solve everything and there's no way they can do it.
And
Rhonda, did you have any surprises from the event?
It was a pleasant surprise. And I think that philosophically, that it was a decision that Unleash went with, is that HR people want to hear from successful HR people. They don't necessarily want to hear from the influencers or the analysts that have been out of touch with the HR space. You know, they didn't want to, this show in the past had people like Arianna Huffington, the guy from Virgin, I forget the guy from the US that gave all the files away that's now in Russia. Sorry, I'm sort of still in airline brain mode.
Paris time.
But we're right down to the nits and grits of seeing HR people. This is my problem. This is how I solved it. And we learn so much from other people's successes. And I think that was just a breath of fresh air to see Unleash be going in that direction. And Larry, I'm sure you saw that sitting where you were.
Yeah, one of the I can't remember the name of the company, but it was a pharmaceutical company who said, I'm just here to tell you how I did it. Right. I'm just going to tell you my story, a real person telling a real story. That's how she kicked it off. And I thought that was a refreshing sort of, they're not sort of pitching anything to you. They're just, opening their story to you. And a lot of questions came out of that for sure.
I agree. And there was two things that I was quite struck by. One was HR. Lots of people were quite happy to share their vulnerabilities. So the things they know they're not doing so well. And I found that eye-opening, because that's a difficult thing to do, to say, look, we know we're doing this, we know we're not doing it well, but actually I'm looking for advice. And I definitely think people have changed their attitude to sharing things like that since the pandemic, because they feel like, let's just embrace it and find better ways to do it. That was one of my insights. And the second one was, I think it was Gary Bowles said that actually we should be using tech to identify the superpowers of our people, but ultimately our people are their superpowers. So there is still this lean. As much as tech is important, it's our people and their superpowers that we need to be still really focusing on. And it was refreshing.
Yeah, because I say, there's this idea that technology is going to take your job or the bots are coming to get us. And I think,
yes,
It's never going to replace the human interaction. But I think what this technology does, Fuel 50 is a great example. It gets you to the conversation, the human conversation, faster with more credible data to have better conversations. And I think that ties sort of what you're saying there as well. Like I can now, if I know what my employee's doing at Fuel 50, what they're trying to do with their career, what their aspirations are, what's in their way, that's such an easier conversation to have as a manager than someone coming in like, I want a promotion. It's much more meaty and future focused, and it's a gift.
Agree. No, I completely agree. Rhonda, have you got any more thoughts on that?
Not really. Larry's probably put it the best. I kind of, I don't want to toot my own horn from Fuel 50, but we definitely, the best way of describing it in helping people is that we're your GPS. You're the one that where you want to go. Let us just help you get there.
Yeah.
And, that's technology helping you get what you want out of your career.
Agreed. So, what were your main takeaways from Unleash 2022?
Besides the jet lag and the blisters on my feet?
Besides those?
Physical takeaways? Well, to me, I think the future is bright of where HR technology is going, the way customers are thinking about employees and their well-being and their future, and how we can make it as easy as possible for them to have better careers, better lives. I think we've accelerated, and maybe COVID accelerated it, but we've accelerated the view of how HR approaches everything. And I feel very motivated going into this next year of where we sit as sort of an industry, and unleash that.
Yeah,
brilliant. Rhonda?
And I felt that coming out of the show, it was just so refreshing, because it was like, at last we see the blinders. Now, Hannah, you're a little young, but Larry and I can remember seeing the blinders, in our careers that the HR department put in front of us. But those blinders are gone now. And HR is no longer just this part of a corporation out in left field that was, a necessary problem that had to be dealt with on a time-to-time basis. It's now part of a company's corporate mandate. And it plays a role in the ROI of the company. And at last, amazing, you know what? People are our greatest asset, At last, corporations are waking up and realizing it's time to invest in our employees.
Yeah, I absolutely hear that. And I think one of my key takeaways, I went there with this view that we really do need to think about talent and people leaving and how we're going to engage people. But what I really, really enjoyed hearing is how we engage the whole person, and this idea of, we really do need to think about every individual from all perspectives, and to really engage them in order to get them to stay and really be in the game, not just a body, but also there in full at work.
I think
I thought it was very good.
COVID has being in a, everyone was locked down at one point. How we're coming back is different ways. But I think talent has a little bit more gravitas to say what they want than they did before, right? I think they were the sort of the shackles of this is the way we always done it has been disrupted, and talent says, I want to do it the way I want to work, the way I want to work. They have a little bit more power over that now, I think. And the response to that has been what we saw at Unleash, and what you guys were just talking about is, okay, we believe you. We want to make sure this is a great experience for you. And we've cared about well-being for the first time through the pandemic, right? When you ask someone in the past, how are you? That was just a non sequitur get to start the meeting. Now, when you ask someone, how are you, you're genuinely interested in how they are.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of, extrapolated into almost everything we do.
It's like,
Agree.
thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Meghan Markle taught us all that.
So, what's next for us? So, I thought we could remind everyone of our upcoming conference in the UK, FuelX. Rhonda, do you want to give a bit of background? And I know, Larry, you will be our host for the event.
I'm the MC, yes, but Rhonda has all the details.
Yeah, well, it's coming up November the 11th at the brewery, and I didn't know where it was until I watched the Queen being taken by the brewery. So I'm already, I know where it is now. It runs for one full day, and it's just full of incredible stories on people who are successfully using Fuel 50. Our keynote is from the conference board, Robin Erickson, and she will be talking about the talent tsunami that's going on right now. So it's going to be an incredible event.
It is, and it really is opportunity for people to come together again and network, and really share things and experiences they're having. So please do go to fuel50.com and /FuelX, and you'll be able to register your place and get further details on the event. But that leaves me with thank you both for your time this evening, and thanks for the roundup of Unleash. It was a brilliant event, and we look forward to many more to come.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paris again next year.
2023.
That's right.
So thank you both very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Al.